So let me catch everybody up. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is our 5th day of streaming Cloudpunk. The game is Cloudpunk. The band is VCR5, which is my music. I'm Dayu Bad Guys, Joe. Some call me Dub G. So we came in here on Monday. And that's a little too loud. So we came in here on Monday, and we started with $5,000 on Cloudpunk. I thought, yeah, that's going to be enough for a whole week of streaming, right? No, it was not. We went through about 50 bottles of juice in the first 3 days. So, and who's counting anyway? You can go back and double check the VOD. I think it was closer to 100. But we're doing a 16-track album and trying to drink juice on each song, or not each song, but when the mood calls for it. Because the idea is to make a dynamic soundtrack that changes with the mood, and when we take juice, the euphoric effects change the mood. So we went into this with 30 bottles of juice, $5,000, and a full tank of gas. Within 3 days, we were completely broken out of juice. So we set about to go. So we started a supply chain. We started going from dealer to dealer, finding out who had the best deal, and we bought a bunch of juice, but ended up losing a bunch of money. I was able to keep us juicing. We were wheezing the juice a little too much, and so we were able to keep us going for 5 days now, but we're out of juice and out of money. And not only that, but guys, I have some really bad news. I just got some really bad news from Emmett. How do I put this? Never Slow Joe was in an accident earlier. He was doing a race. Apparently he tried to do 11 races in one night. And it was just too much for him. And Never Slow Joe is no longer with us. So you meet a guy one night, and he gives you an autograph, and you think he's pretty cool. He's a racer. And then you meet a girl on the sidewalk who is also a fan of that racer, and she steals your fucking card. And that kind of hurt. Kind of hurt pretty bad. I'm sorry.
Directly from your implants to your brainstem. Your eyes look better.
So we carried about our business, right? We carried on. Like, losing that card was, didn't ask, didn't nothing. And then yesterday we were just walking around looking for a juice hookup, or something. I think I was looking for noodles, actually. And we stumbled across a new character we hadn't talked to before, so my stupid ass decided, okay, let's talk to him. I mean, in games, that's what you do. Like, I played Zelda 2 a few times all the way through. That's what you gotta do, right? If you want to beat the game, you gotta talk to everybody. So I talked to him. Turns out he's a racist. A historian, mind you. Like, have you ever met a racist historian? Come on. So he asked me for a ride. I kind of tell him no, but the game just decided that it was time for me to take this racist guy down to Midtown. So I stopped the song I was doing. I didn't stop it. I was in the middle of doing a track, and I have to take this guy down to Midtown, right? So I take him to Midtown. Doesn't tell me where. There is a nav point, which I drive to. Keep in mind, I'm pretty devastated after losing the day before from losing this Never Slow Joe card. Just turn this off for just a sec. Anyway, so we take this guy downtown and we drop him off, or to Midtown and we drop him off. but he keeps talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. He won't shut the fuck up. So I figure if I go to the nav point and we can end this, because I just want to continue my track. It is an open world game after all, So I take this guy. Are my mic levels okay? If anybody's in chat right now, let me know if I'm clipping or whatever. I don't really know. But anyway, so we drop the guy off. We're trying to get the nav point off the marker off the map. Maybe get a little money, which we were promised, which we did not. We're good? Okay, cool. So then we go to the nav point, and guess what? It's a nav point for a mission, which I know from watching other streams, that this mission sends you on a path to the end game. So if you do this mission, then your open world adventure starts to get swallowed up by the story mode. So I had been avoiding getting this heart, to deliver this heart, which is a timed mission, the only timed mission in the whole game, because I knew that it would limit my freedom and that I would have to listen to a bunch of conversations. Well, guess what? I had to do it anyway. So, there's no option. Do you want to do this later? Do you want to, so I hurried and tried to do the mission. I failed. Not only that, all this time I've been banging into walls. I'm doing this music and driving at the same time. It's a little hard. I'm driving through, some really thick traffic and, I don't know, just all over the place. And I'm making my own repairs. But after I fail this mission, it starts me on the next mission. Doesn't ask me yes or no. It just starts me on the next mission. The next mission is, oops, your car got damaged. So you have to take it to this special repair shop. You have to take it to Emmett.
Life Corp, become your new perfect.
And that fucking blows. Pardon my French, but I'm trying to have an open world experience, right? Like, I don't want to have to drive, and I had to go through 3 different townships to get to Emmett. Now, Emmett's a nice guy. I remember he's the one that sent me out to Never Slow Joe in the first place. That's how I met Never Slow Joe, is through Emmett. I came to Emmett. He gave me the part, and I sent it out. I drove the part out to Never Slow Joe, who had broken down on the racetrack. Like, go figure. That would be the equivalent of hiring an Uber driver to come out and change your tire, But I did it, and Never Slow Joe gave me the card. Blah blah blah. So it tells me I have to go back to Emmett. Like, we're making a full circle from the beginning of the game. Now it's the end of the game, and to find out that Never Slow Joe is no longer moving fast, that's too much. You know what? Fuck you, Cloudpunk. That was a kick to the nuts. So changed my mind. Anyway, so now that we've gotten, and so basically I had to come home from work last night and spend, because your car is limping, so you can't go fast. It's not that bad, but it's still annoying. I was using my speed booster the whole time, but I basically had to spend another 45 minutes after I got home from work. All I had to do was listen to about 15 or 20 minutes, limp across town, and then listen to about 15-20 minutes of conversation, and now I'm back to playing the game. So I love this game. It's a nice game. They did a good job, but sometimes it really pisses me off. Like, I want to play this game how I want to play it. I don't want to play it in an ABCDE mode. It really kind of ruined it for me. Like, that aspect of this game, I do not like. This open world is wonderful and fantastic, and they keep pulling me away from it. Like, they won't let me just have fun. Like, when you stop doing missions, you stop making money. When you stop making money, you run out of gas. So in order to continue missions, you have to actually turn to selling drugs. Like, that's the only way you can continue your open world adventure, is to become a drug dealer. Like, and you think they did that on accident? No, they did not do that on accident. You can go around picking up garbage. Like, that's your other option. So you can either be a garbage picker or a drug dealer. You pick. Okay, but anyway, so the concept is hidden soundtracks. We're making our own soundtrack to the game. It's a dynamic soundtrack. It changes with the mood. Let's go ahead and start. We're trying to fit a lot of tracks in today. It's our last day of the weekly grind, so let's get started. That's actually great news. You picked up Cloudpunk? Are you being serious? Like, did I change one mind about this game? Like, because if I did, then that makes me so happy, honestly. Today? That is great. Nuts demolished. Yeah. That's great news, dude. All right. Maybe I can watch you stream the DLC. I'd be down with that. That could be totally a lot more relaxing than this, I'll tell you what. One's for you, Never Slow Joe. How we all doing? Happy Friday, everybody. And thank you for joining me on this lovely drive time broadcast. It doesn't get any easier. We do have some news. Spoiler alert. Rapid Slow Joe is no longer with us. That song was dedicated especially to him. He was a racer. Was he ridiculous, like radically irresponsible? Maybe. But he was still our Joe. Was he well past the ripe age that man should explore such hobbies as flying cars, going, thousands of miles an hour? Yes, probably, but he did it for us. He did it for the fans. So let's all lift the glass. Let's all lift our coffee to Never Slow Joe. Who we can no longer call Never Slow Joe. He is now finally slowing down. So here's to you, Joe. I promise. Get it together, Joe. Get it together. Get it together, Dub G. Okay, we're back. Okay, so we're playing, for those that just came in, we're playing Cloudpunk. The music is VCR5. My name is Dub G. VCR5 is my music. VCR5 is my band, and I call it a band, but it's really just me. But I call it a band because once upon a time, when I was young and vigorous, and I had high vigor, when I still had my vigor dice pool, I was collaborating with a lot of other people. One of those people was a VJ named Dan Studich, who was a member of I think he still is a member of VCR5. It took me about 10 years for me to take his name off the list, and only after he said it, he's like, am I still in VCR5? I was like, oh, I guess not. I'm sorry. But yeah, there's him. He's a VJ who I work with a lot. He's a genius. I love Dan, and he's also a very good accordionist. Plays in a band called Media Accord. He's a professional. He doesn't fuck around. He can play any song you request on the accordion. He came and played at my company Christmas party one year, and I think they ended up tipping him. These really cheap people that I worked for, they ended up giving him a tip. I think, if I remember right. Dan, you tell me. If you're in the chat, Dan, you tell me. Did you get a tip? I mean, I just basically pointed him your direction. I saw cash in his hand, and I pointed him your direction. So. But he really made it special. So Dan is in VCR5, or I consider him part of VCR5. I worked with a rapper named Tin Man, John Schwartz, for many years, and he's a great guy. I love him. I hope one day to get him in the chat. And Shane Smith. Shane Smith is a great dude. I love him. He's one of my oldest friends. He's also a ginger, so you would like him, Edith. I think you've actually met him many times, Shane Smith. Of course, there's many people named Shane Smith, but there's only one of this particular Shane Smith. There's nobody quite like him. And he played keyboard for me a few times, and so I consider him part of the band. But anyway, yeah, VCR5. And let's go ahead and do another track. We're kind of cruising through town right now, kind of checking the vibe out. Let's do a little bit of exploratory music, and then we'll get back to talking. Okay, bye. Somebody can tell me how to get rid of this sticky keys shit. Let me know. I know we only have one container of juice left, but I think it's time. You know what? I'm gonna save it. here's what I think happened. I think I'm still processing the whole Never Slow Joe thing. Clearly, it has affected my music. I mean, like if you've been here the last couple days, today has been like on the chill scale. Today has been like an 11. You know, on a 1 to 10 chill scale, today has been like chill overload. So it feels good. It feels good. I didn't juice. I'm trying to keep it real. Like, I saw what happens, you know? It's been a long week. Let's go ahead and kill this snare. My name is Dayu Bad Guys. The game is Cloudpunk. The legend is Never Slow Joe, who happens to share the same name as me. I mean, go figure. But he touched my life in a way that, you know, a random NPC just never does. So he will be missed. And I'm sorry for if this spoils it for anybody, but I didn't choose this fucking path. Okay, like I wanted to just roam freely around the neighborhood or around the different hoods and just sell juice. Like I never wanted this. Like if it were up to me, Never Slow Joe would still be with us, right? If I could just find a buyer, you know, when I needed one, then none of this would have ever happened. But anyway, I digress. Most people, if anybody is logged in right now, have no idea what I'm talking about. If I could turn back time. That's my share. It's not the best. Let's recap. So, thank you. So this is our 5th day, and we've been making a lot of music. I sought out to play all 16 tracks in 1 2-hour sit down. It's not gonna happen. What's up, Dom? Dom Kizzle? Did you follow? I'm sorry, I have sound alerts turned off, but I did fix Edage. I don't know if you noticed, but I did fix the 10-minute timeout. So this boomer is I fixed the fax machine. We're getting faxes now from Dom Kizzle. Dom, I'm a huge fan. I loved I know you're still working on the Jimbo painting, but I loved what you did so far. I imagine one side of your neck is like super buff, right? From having to look over at the picture like 15,000 times while you're painting. And good on you, man. Like I know a couple. My friend Corey, she's a landscape artist, and she started off really bad. I mean, not really bad. Like all of us, she started off. You do neck exercises? Come on, man. Don't bullshit me. Okay? That's my Total Recall. Come on, don't bullshit me. So, yeah, Never Slow Joe. He's slowing down. He can't, you know. When you're a corpse, you don't move very fast. Unless he was cremated, which I guess in this kind of world it probably is very possible. I think what they do is they just throw you over the side of the road. Like they just salute. Are you doing it on stream? I work, so I won't be able to really participate. Some people have probably noticed that I log in while I'm at work, but my comments are very sporadic because I try to participate even though I really can't. So I just catch like 1/10 of what's going on. But anyway, Dom Kizzle, my friend Corey, she started off very meager landscape artist, and I honestly, like even as an artist myself, I really had my doubts. But after doing about 100 and something canvases, she started making some real progress, and now she's actually one of the best. Like, she's in Washington. She moved up here by me, and to be closer to nature, and to paint the forests of Washington, essentially. And she is so good. It's been such an amazing journey watching her. But anyway, and the game is Cloudpunk, and for those who have been with us all week, I'm sorry, this is the only apology you're going to get for the day, a repetitious apology. We have to keep talking about it. They released this game last year, I think, kind of under the table, and it was on the PlayStation Store, or I got it from the PlayStation Store, and for really cheap. And I don't know, the way I play games is I hunt like the games down. Like some people go in and play video games, I go in and play Steam and like look through 1,000 games before I buy a little tiny $5 one. But I hunted it down, and I thought it looked interesting, so I bought it thinking that it was like a cheap kind of cyberpunk clone. But it's not. It's actually so I bought it for like $5. Yeah, Steam is a fun game. Steam shopping. Like, have you ever played Steam Shopper? Like, I always go bankrupt on that game. So I bought the game thinking it was something that it was not, and I felt a little bit cheated, and I turned it off. So, and I didn't really explore it. I just kind of realized that I had been duped, and I didn't explore it. But over time, like, just out of happenstance, I think it was slow at work, or I was changing jobs or something. But I had a little bit of time, so I popped it in. Yeah, Windows Steam Shopper 2. That's my favorite one. Windows, yeah. Yeah, okay, and long story short, I fell in love with it. So I was playing it, and there's really cool things about it. It's this whole huge open world that you can explore and do, just go and learn about all the people and its inhabitants. And it's just this really rich environment that you can explore. And they did a really good job of the cockpit view on the Steam version. I love games with cockpit views. It helps immerse you into the game. Like, one of my complaints about this game is that it robs you of your suspension of disbelief, and it does it intentionally. So it pulls you out of your bliss. So I'm sitting here like pretending I'm a driver going through the city. I've got this imaginary vehicle that I'm flying around, and suddenly I get a phone call, and it's Cloudpunk, and they say, you have to go here and hurry and pick up. Well, now I'm working, like, I was having a lot of fun just flying around and doing my music and just chilling, and now the game is making me go from point A to point B, and it punishes you for not doing it. Like, it will actually force your ass to go and pick this dude up, and force you to give away your most prized never slow joke card to a little girl who didn't even appreciate it. I mean, get it together, Joe. I mean, I could find her. She was standing out on a ledge. I mean, like, pretend she's right in front of us, so we could hit the speed boost and just be like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to hit a little girl. But she did really piss me off, because her voice made her sound like she was like in her 30s or 40s. So I don't think she was even a little girl. But anyway, so this game kind of grew on me. It's very charming. It has a lot of merits. It also has a lot of problems. For one thing, it was deceiving. The fact that they released the game making people think, one of the ways that they made people think that this game was this larger than life, like big time production, was the soundtrack. So in the city of Navalis, I'm sure you'll hear the ad shortly that says jazz music is punishable, or unlicensed jazz in Navalis is punishable by death. So if you in Navalis, and there's a whole bunch of people that kind of allude to this, which is and my character Rania actually carries around a flute or an ocarina and a flute. And when we went through a CorpSec checkpoint, there was a big issue with Camus, the onboard computer, telling us that maybe you should hide the flute. You know, alluding to that maybe, I mean, not just jazz, but creative expression itself might be somewhat federalized and regulated. And I thought, that's just such a cool, kind of weird, twisted, like almost Twilight Zone kind of narrative. And so it made me kind of wonder, okay, so I got to hear this soundtrack. And I turned on the soundtrack and I heard this. So we'll listen, we're going to listen to the game music for a moment. This is not my music for anybody that just tuned in. This is not VCR5. This is the game. Well, it doesn't get much jazzier than that, right? Am I right? So yeah, that illustrates my point pretty clearly. I was like, well, where's the jazz? Like, yeah, jazz is illegal in the game, but, or is it illegal to put jazz in the soundtrack? I mean, what the fuck? It was such a huge missed opportunity that immediately I sought out I thought, I wonder what it would be like. I wonder if it would be cool to have a jazz-infused Cloudpunk soundtrack. And I immediately sought out to do it. So that was in November of last year, and I experimented for a couple months with different ideas. One of my buddies, Mark Herrera, who's probably watching the stream right now, gave me like an hour and a half worth of flute samples years ago. I mean, it's not an hour and a half, I'm exaggerating, but it's a long, just like a long recording of just hundreds of different scales and dozens of different like instruments. Like, he has 5 different flutes, and he just went through the whole gamut and recorded them all in mono for me. And so I experimented with some acoustic instruments that way, and he also plays saxophone, which I didn't try to use, but so I tried layering it with acoustic instruments, and the city is just so rich with mid-range noise that it was almost impossible. Which kind of begs the question, then why did they put so much mid-range noise in the actual soundtrack? To which I have no answer. When the song kicks on in the game, you can no longer hear the cars whirring around. You can't really hear if somebody's behind you or in front of you. It just really, like, they work against each other. So the answer is money. They found a way to do this sound design for relatively cheap and fast. What they did, I believe, is what most games do, I should say, is they went out and bought some already made music that sounded, very science fiction-y and very, appropriate to an unreleased game that looks like a larger-than-life cyberpunk clone. So it's a marketing idea. We'll make everything in our marketing scheme to make this game look and feel like something that it's not. The game itself is more like a text adventure game, like almost the complete opposite of. And cyberpunk has elements of that. I mean, there's a lot of conversation, And those games also harken back to the old text adventure days in many ways. However, those games have combat, they have role-playing elements. This game has none of that. You don't even have a health bar or stamina or anything. All you have is fuel in your car and this amber light system, which doesn't work properly. It basically just warns you if you ding your car too many times, you have to go in and get it fixed. Anyway, I think I made my point. The game itself is not larger than life. It's very simple, easy, cozy, fun adventure. I mean, not adventure, but it's a fun exploratory game. We're going into the vents right now. So while we're here in the vents, let's do some gritty stuff. Let's hear some music. I've talked enough for now. Let's do some music. Actually one of my favorite areas, and I think this song will become a Vents track, honestly. Like, I think I will actually call it Vents with a Z because it fits really, really good. I'm glad we did this. Do your thing, Edith. Thanks for being here, buddy. You're amazing. Good morning, everybody. Are you bad guys here? That was the heater turning on again. What's funny is when I'm cold, it doesn't seem to turn on. But if I hit live on OBS, it just, kicks right on. As soon as my microphone is live, it just likes to turn on. So, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but we don't have the cool lighting today. Did I bump my camera? Oh, we're good. I don't have the cool lighting today because I forgot to charge the lamp. So, I'm not an obligatory, turquoise colored streamer today. Sorry. I think you guys will forgive me. And as I go through the many Twitch streams and I see the many trends and I see the many different streamers and what they're doing, I always have the urge to reach out to them and tell them you don't have to clean your room. I would just once love to see a streamer with a dirty room behind him. like, just to see if maybe I'm the only like human left. Come on, robots, you don't have to have this perfectly organized life and this perfectly organized like facade, okay? Like one of these days I'll turn my camera around and let you guys see my shit. You know, my shit stinks just like everybody else. Let's not pretend that it doesn't, is all I'm saying. You know, let's relax. I hate that we've set up this kind of Hollywood-esque facade for ourselves, that we always have to be pretty and we always have to be on point and we always have to be talented and we always have to be special and we always have to be different. You know what? I've met a lot of people. Maybe I haven't met you, but I've met a lot of people who I was charmed and fell in love and even fell in love with just for who they were, you know? So if people can't see that, if you come across somebody and they don't immediately understand, you know, what you're about, then fuck them, you know? Like some people I see every once in a while, I'm not going to name any names because, you know, it's a complicated issue, but some people doing streams laying down on their bed to help their back, you know? Fuck yeah. It's a video game, you know? Why are we killing ourselves? Why are we hurting why am I stressing so much about getting 16 tracks into 2 hours? That's just a stupid thing to try and beat yourself up for. You know, it's a video game. We do this to relax and to have fun. But I guess everybody has a different definition of fun. In the video game industry, we like to use the term fun. But it doesn't mean, I mean, they like to use the term fun. But it doesn't mean anything. It means something different to everybody. So I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Sorry, not sorry for using the word fun. Let's go over to the setup. We've done this for a couple days now. It seems to work pretty good. Okay. So, I don't know, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I delayed this stream for a long time because I wanted to have natural light. That I didn't want to have my ugly LED lamp lighting the scene, essentially. So this is pay dirt for me, you know, just having a little bit of sunlight come through the window. Living in Portland, you don't get to see it very often. So when Monday came around and the sun was out, I really felt good. I was like, this is a good omen. Even if I were to have my little turquoise lamp on right now, you couldn't see it because of all the indoor or the outdoor lighting coming in. Anyway, this is my setup that I'm using for this Cloudpunk, what I call Block 50. That's, I think, is the working title for the soundtrack. And what we have is the Electribe. I'm using a low megapixel webcam because I'm always paranoid about people watching and going in and getting personal data, you know, like going in and getting my router password or something. So I purposely got a grainy webcam with a fisheye lens so that nobody could sneak in and like look, you know, zoom in on my phone or anything like that. But I'm just super paranoid about that stuff. So sorry about the shitty grainy image. It's a security cam, which I also have on the front door. And then this is the ER1 Electribe. It's got this sweet Batman sticker on it, the original, the Warner Brothers Batman, from the Michael Keaton Batman. Shows you how old it is. It's got the Krusty the Clown sticker. Don't know if you can see it, but that wasn't put on there by me. That was put on there by Justin Chenard. He's an artist that I worked with through a performance at the Rose Wagner Theater, where he's another VJ, kind of like Dan Studich, and he does really cool stuff with film. And so he did visuals and I did music. And after the show, he contacted me and reached out, which I was delighted about, and wanted to trade equipment. And I said, sure. I was like, fuck, I had this loop pedal that I hadn't been using. It was a really classic, what's it called? The Line 6 DL6. And I traded him straight across for the ER1 Electribe. At the time, these things sold for, I don't know, $300 or $400. And now you can't even find them. So, I mean, you can find them, but they're very rare. So the Electribe essentially it became the all-in-one back in the late or mid 90s. It became your all-in-one drum, kind of like a techno machine. So basically, you could put one of these on the table, and it would act as a synth and the ER1 is just a rhythm synth, but there was like the Volca. This was the predecessor to the Volca. You had your ER1, and then you had a synth unit, a blue synth unit that you'd buy with it, and then you would have a black MIDI unit that could do composition and shit. And then I think there was even another one, a green one, that did bass. So anyway, the ER1 was just the rhythm portion of it. Now, of course, they've condensed that Volca, the same thing, into a Volca, which is, maybe 1/10 or 1/5 the size. But anyway, the ER1 replaced the Roland Groove Box, or the Boss Groove Box, whichever you want to call it, which used to be kind of the all-in-one party drum machine. The Electron Digitone is a polyphonic synth, truly polyphonic FM synth, because it uses 16 sound pathways, independent sound pathways, to create notes. So even if you have, which allows you to make chords, because it basically has a really powerful sound engine. Normally in FM synth, you would be limited to one note, or it was, monophonic. But this one, it's an 8-voice synthesizer. They call it an 8-voice synth, but it's actually only 4. It's got 4 voices and then 4 MIDI channels, which you can use to control another digitone, the mini digitone, which was a great marketing idea. Because as soon as I bought it and felt how heavy it was, I immediately went out and got the mini version, so that I could take it to shows with me, because this is just too fucking heavy. And then we have the TR-8S, which is a drum machine. It's the 808. It's the modern version of the 808, and I just love it. It's a great machine. You can use it as a slave or a master. I can control either of these two devices through here, or vice versa. I can use the sounds in this, like I can use the ER1 MIDI capability to fire off sounds on this or this. Right now I just have, the only MIDI control I have hooked up is essentially the PCM. So that when I push start and stop, they're always synchronized and quantized. You'll notice, if you listen to musicians out there, you'll notice a lot of this music has swing, what they call swing. And some people may be even wondering, how do I get the PCM instruments to overlap? And well, I'll tell you. I took the swing, to achieve this jazz feel, which I've talked about, which I felt the soundtrack was lacking. There's a couple elements to it. One is the swing. The swing is essential. But it's almost undetectable, because the swing is completely cranked 100%, almost 100%, like very, very, very close. So, and that causes what that does is it takes the notes on, the middle notes, what you would normally call the middle notes, and it shuffles them over, right? So it's almost like so it shuffles them over, and what that does is it gives a little microsecond overlap between these two symbols, the symbol in 1 and the symbol in 2. So it creates this unique kind of, because normally PCM instruments can't overlap. It's like if I took and put cymbals on all 3 of these instruments, you would still, or not cymbals, but hi-hats, you would still only hear one hi-hat at the end, because it's by design. Because you want it to sound like the hi-hat's going, and then when the open hi-hat goes off, the low hi-hat closes. Like it's down. It's by design. But the way we're able to get those sounds to overlap, as if it was 2 hi-hats going at the same time, is by shuffling the 2 and the 4 to almost 99.9% overlap the 3 and the 5, so that when it hits, it does this little. And it creates a little bit of a shuffle, like a micro shuffle. The other way that we achieve the way that we infuse our soundtrack with jazz is by with what they call probability. For example, it's still in its freestyle mode right now. So basically, there's 4 moduses for each track, and each one has, so it's the same track but 4 different ways, and each modus has a certain degree of probability. So once we hit the 4th modus, this one here, the computer then basically, as it's going through the notes, or as it's going through the triggers, it's saying, okay, 50%. Instead of, before it was like 1%, 3%, 9%. Now it's basically like 50%, 50%, 50%. Goes through and finds another note, 50%, 50%, 50. So basically, it's a roll of the dice with each instrument that it's playing, and you can add as much probability or as little probability as you want, and you can only do this. I mean, software can do this fairly easy, but as far as I know, on FM synthesizers, the digitone is kind of the master of this. So the digitone is kind of a new type of FM synth. It has an incredible amount of memory, which allows you to make really Cloudpunk-like compositions. Like, I'm able to do these kind of crazy random jazz infused just using one bar, so one measure, and I can make I can make this one measure expand all these different ways, kind of how an open world works, or like a Minecraft seed would work. So that way, people who are tuning in every day, and you could go back if you wanted to and listen to the different VODs, and the songs would almost be indiscernible. I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell that this is even the same song. I mean, you probably can. The average listener probably can tell which song is which. But if you laid them on top of each other, the engine is making probability decisions, and in the process of making these probability decisions, it's affecting the way that we choose to accompany it. So as it's throwing out these kind of like black keys, we are forced to go a little bit more with the bit crushing, where we are forced to add a little bit more subwoofer to give it a grittier feel. So we feed off of each other. Me and this engine work together in the same way that Rania, the driver in Cloudpunk, works with her environment. So I think it works. I was really happy with the results. So anyway, go back to the game. The Electribe we're using for house booms, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but the cool thing about the Electribe is you have wave control. So in previous experiments, I was doing house booms with a square wave, and I decided that the bent sine wave was the most, for this application, was the cleanest, even though the square or saw wave bass gave it more distortion and sounded really cool. I felt like after you watched it, like on the videos and on YouTube, that it lost so much quality that it was almost pointless. That even if I use the bent sine wave, it still sounds kind of shitty. Like once it hits the stream. So I wanted, from the very beginning, I felt like I needed to set a standard with hidden soundtracks. Hidden soundtracks is the concept where, I mean, it kind of comes, the genesis of the name kind of comes from the fact that you're going from place to place and unlocking the soundtrack. That essentially it's not a soundtrack that's already made, it's a soundtrack that you make as you go. So it's a hidden soundtrack. So being that as it was, I wanted to set a standard. I would really love if hidden soundtracks catches on. I would love nothing more than to watch another person's stream where they're doing the same thing, like in My Summer Car, or I don't know, any game, any driving game, like Pacific Drive or something like that, where they're making their own soundtrack as they drive. It's not always doable because a lot of games are more involved than this one. That if you wreck, it goes back to the beginning, etc. So I know it's it's going to be unlikely that other games are able to do this. But being that as it was, I wanted to set a certain standard. I feel very strongly that as a driving game, as you're driving around in the car, it should sound like bass is coming from the sub in the back of the car. And in fact, I spoke to a friend of mine, Pete, from work, who's kind of a synth guru, a modular synth guy, to try and get ideas on how to make it sound like that sub was back there rattling, like when it hits the really heavy notes. Like most of these bass notes or these house booms are all in the same note, so they're all tuned to their various tracks. But I wanted it to make it so that when it hits certain lower notes, that it rattles it vibrates the actual casing of the car. So we experimented with that, but it didn't yield any like real fruit, because like I said before, when you're using distortion from the beginning, you want to start clean as fuck, so that when it hits the stream, it sounds a little dirty, because it always will. But if you start dirty, then by the time it hits the stream, it's just shit. So we weren't able to do that. Someday maybe, but basically, if I were to apply that right now, everybody would just be touching their, like, do I have a loose speaker? Like a loose speaker wire? It just sounds like, it makes it sound like your computer's, or like something's broken. But it was a cool idea. We didn't end up doing it. But I feel like I needed to set the standard, so that's why we used the subwoofer bass. And of course, we wanted to infuse jazz into the soundtrack, so that's why we used probability. And I normally don't use that much. I'm not that very heavy on the synth work. This is my first time using synth as like a main instrument. Normally I'll use it as just a bass or just an accompaniment, just accompaniment. But in this case, I had to really like kind of learn how to master the digitone, which was fun and hard at the same time. But also very rewarding when I hear the final result, what this machine can do. It feels very good. Let's do another track with that. I think that's a good segue. Before I do, though, I just want to thank everybody who's watching. Anybody who's watching today. It's Friday. This is the last day of our kind of streamathon shit. It's a drive time show, so the idea is just for people to tune in and have some music in the background while they go about their day. Whether it be driving or whatever. What's up, Rezzy? Good to have you, man. You came just in time. All right, Rezzy's in the chat, so let's do a track. All right, Rezzy, we're gonna talk more about this game in a sec. I hope you can stick around, but I would rather you hear the music than anything. All right, hey, sit tight. Reggie's in the chat, so we gotta take some juice. And it's Friday. We've been saving this one just for you, Rizzy. Here we go. Hey guys. Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you letting me know. I could have gone the whole entire rest of the stream that way. In this case, I'm not too upset about it because it was just for one song. Yeah, I do appreciate it, dude. God, that hit good. That felt really good. And you know, I remember when I first started playing music. Rizzy probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. When I first started playing music, like, I think one of my first shows was like a big show, and that was a problem because I got a taste for it. I got a taste for playing in front of a whole bunch of people. You know, it feels good. It's totally different. You know, just playing for a big, huge room full of people versus playing for just a few intimate friends. You know, and I gotta say, after all these years, you know, maybe even close to 100 different performances. Honestly, like I have a hard time keeping track. But the hardest shows are like this one here. Seriously, where it's just like for a couple of your friends in their living room. You know, those are the most nerve-wracking and horrifying shows. The ones where you can't hide. You know, so you know, I can't tell you how special it feels or how good it feels to be able to do this. So. And on, you know, especially after what happened with Joe, you know, Never Slow Joe, and you know, my fuel light's on. So there's that. I've got $200 left. That's enough for maybe one tank of gas, and then I'm done. We got no juice. I'm glad Rezi was able to see our last bottle of juice, but we are approaching the 2-hour mark, so I'm not worried about it, guys. You know, for all I care, we can just sit and talk for the rest of the day. You know, I gotta go to work eventually, but you know, I'm open. I'm open to ideas, and you know, anyway, I'm glad you guys were able to get to see me playing my setup. I can't stress enough how difficult it is to actually play the game and play music at the same time. I mean, you're using two completely different parts of your brain stretched in two completely different directions. But I am very proud of myself for being able to. I found a way. It wasn't like I couldn't do it. I found a way to be able to chat and do this at the same time. Thanks, dude. So I know it's not heavy like the stuff that you normally listen to, and honestly, this stuff here that I'm making now is not the stuff I even normally listen to. But I did it for the game. So thanks, buddy. I have a real, you know, I'm a bit of a spoiled brat. Like these guys who actually did the soundtrack. Let's listen to some of the game music. So, since Rezi's here, we can give him a little contrast. What you just heard was my music, and what I feel was an appropriate soundtrack for the game. Given the feel and the attitude, the different neighborhoods, just the overall vibe of the game. That's the soundtrack I envision. Let's really quickly flip over to the game soundtrack so Rezi can hear what it sounds like. The original soundtrack that came with the game. And sometimes it does take a minute for the music to come on, so we'll just float here for a second. Let's listen. And just to be clear, this is not my music. This is the game music. This is the music that came with the game. Let's listen. Edith, you wanted cowbell, so there you go. That's actually what they call a log drum, though, but it sounds like a cowbell. I like it. Ain't that how it goes, Resi? Yeah, I actually had ice cubes thrown at me at my first show, and I flipped off the audience, and it pissed them off even more. I don't know, maybe Edith was there. It was opening for the Scatolites. In retrospect, it was a big mistake because I'm not ska. Like, my music is not ska at all. Like, I had no idea that was a locked like genre. I thought ska encompassed all kinds of like punk elements, you know, but it doesn't. They like ska only. So yeah, that was a mistake. But I learned from it. I remember the first thing I learned is don't invite your parents to a show. You know, this is not my. Oh yeah, you were there for the oh god, you were there for like the worst show ever. Yeah, I did this show at the Woodshed, and they double booked us. Woodshed is now like a different, like they tore it down and it became an actual functioning bar. But they double booked us, and instead of working together, instead of the guy, first of all, he showed up late. The guy that they double booked us with, there was a touring band that I was booked with. You know, I had actually brought the touring band and was opening for them. This other guy, was a local that they had booked, and instead of working with us, he went ahead and just did his own show. He went out on the patio and brought all his people out on the patio and did his own show while we were playing our show. Oh, is it? Okay, good. That's good to hear. That place was such a bad bar. It was, every rendition of that bar was just a nightmare. And I heard Bert's is gone too, and that's great. That place was a fucking shithole. But anyway, so he went out and played his own show on the patio, and our people played our show inside. He played his show outside, and in the middle of the touring band set, I mean, there was like nobody there anyway. It was just a very small crowd. So he took his like 3 people, and we took our 3 people. And in the middle of his set, the guy, the amp broke. The PA that I had brought broke. It was such a nightmare. And so the singer walked outside and lit up a cigarette and just blew it right in the dude's face as he was playing. The band is, I don't want to say the name of the band because that's just bad form. I don't want to slander somebody on live television, but it was fucking classless. Like the way that he handled that was the dude that got double booked. He didn't handle it with class at all. Like, I've been double booked so many fucking times, and I didn't have a fit about it. It happens all the time. What you do is you start right away. If you go to a show and you find out they've been double booked, you don't wait until people show up. You just set up. Whoever's first in line, you set up and you play an audience for an audience of 0 because you have to get through the show. Like, I brought all my equipment down here. I'm playing a fucking show. Anyway, I didn't want to get off on that rant. Sorry, buddy. But that's just the life. I don't miss that element of it, to be honest with you, booking and all that shit and promoting and fuck. But I do miss the big crowds. Yeah. Okay, well, anyway, we heard the game music. Did I turn it down? So, I keep talking about it, and I feel like I have to. The game music essentially is just tracks. Double booking sucks, man. It happened a few times, and we were like, whoops, no one will actively listen to us anyway, so might as well make a scene. But you never took your people outside on the patio and had your own show on the patio. I mean, I think that's like the bottom of the class barrel, honestly. Like, as far as taking it, I've taken my shit and gone home. I've been like, nah. Or sometimes I'll be like, okay, give me $5 for gas and I'll walk away. You know, I've actually done that a couple times. I call them up before the show and be like, okay, well, nobody's coming, so, you know, give me $5 and we'll call it even, and I won't show up. You know. So anyway, it's a fun life. I don't know, and nobody, you know, anybody who's never toured before and who's never played live shows before, you just can't understand like how you don't do it. You don't do it for money. Let's just put it that way. I mean, that's like the understatement of the century, I think. Is people who think that any musician is like a billionaire. It's like, you are sorely mistaken. Yeah, you do it. I think you do it as to what they call crooning. I think we all are crooners in our own way. We all essentially hop on our dung heap once in a while and like to crow. And it's just in our nature. I think authors are the same way. Authors write because they love to write. Like they love to the sound of their own voice, essentially. So they love the sound of their own voice when it transfers to paper. Yeah, as it gets it. Still, I'm actually in the process of, like, this show hopefully will act as like a catalyst for booking more shows. I'm actually think I'm going to a wedding in September in Salt Lake City, so there is a good chance that I will be booking some shows. But don't get your hopes up, because you know how it goes. I haven't received the official invitation yet, so we'll see. But if I do come to Salt Lake City, then I will definitely be playing at the International Artist Lounge and what was the other one? Twilight, which Edith would probably like to come to. The International Artist Lounge is an all-ages venue, I think, and I think Edith's very aware of Twilight. So anyway, Cloudpunk. So let's talk a little bit about Cloudpunk. I hope this, and I'm not going to apologize, but I do hope that these don't sound like lectures. That I hope that what I'm saying to you, it sounds like I already changed Edith's mind about this game, probably. After watching me play it for 5 days, I think he, correct me if I'm wrong, Edith, or not, you can go about what you're doing, but I think Edith has seen enough to know that there is a little bit of room in this game for some explorative, like, expressionism, some role play, or some, however you want to call it. It's basically this. He sees now that this game has possibilities. He sees the potential in this game, but a lot of people buy this game thinking that it's a big side. Like, Edith wants to become a juice dealer. Like, I'm glad that I could inspire you in such a way. I mean, you got to make money. That's the thing. Is this game is the only realistic thing about this game is that it requires money. They do have cash machines all over the city, and you know what the shameful thing is, Edith? I completed a mission one time, and as a result, I got the code for some guy's bank account, and I didn't write it down, and I forgot it. And I feel like it would be cheating to look it up, honestly. So I could go to this. They have ATM machines all over the city. I could go right now and withdraw like another $1,000, I think, or something. But I forgot the code, so my bad. But who cares, right? I mean, who gives a shit? I have $34 to my name now. I think it's good timing though, because we managed to survive all 5 days on $5,000, and we drank all our juice. I mean, we did all of our liquor too. We used up pretty much everything. Might as well use the pheromones. Fuck.
Huh.
I mean, all we have left really is the sunglasses. I wanted to keep those because, you know, when you get out of the car, you can look at yourself and you want to look fucking sweet. Might as well have an energy drink too.
That's alright.
Well, anyway, Resi, sounds like you're curious about this game, so let's talk about it. This game's not for everybody. If you go into it thinking that this is some kind of a Cyberpunk 2077 clone, you're just going to buy it and then turn it off. But I think, like I was saying, I think Edge has seen enough of this game that he sees the potential, and I did too. When I first turned it on, I didn't see that potential. I just felt cheated. You know, I saw this. You know, when I was on Steam shopping games, I saw this and heard. Where is it? And heard this. So when they did that, or when I saw that, I did this. I pulled out my wallet, which you should never do. When you're high on emotion is not the time to purchase things. I saw the game, I thought, this is the one I've been waiting for. It's all the possibilities. No, it's this game. I would compare it. If I had to this, I wonder if the developers like heard this, would they consider it insulting? Like, is this game so far from what they tried to translate that I think it feels like an old game from the Commodore 64. It's like a kid's game called Tonk in the Land of Buddy Bots, where the whole point of the game was to go to around this big world, and in this like kind of top-down adventure, this like little 4-bit adventure, and go and visit your friends, and your friends give you these robot parts, arms, legs, a head, all that stuff, a hat, and you build a robot. You could take it back home and you build a robot. There is one bad guy, he's like a king, but the only way to die is to basically go in there and touch him, and then you die, and then the game starts over. And there's no combat, it's very simple. And so I feel like Cloudpunk is that game. Do the developers and software designers and marketing people agree with me? Probably not. I mean, they probably think they probably are really drinking this punch that they're selling, honestly. That's the only way I can explain the failed opportunity of not making a jazz soundtrack in a game where a game called Cloudpunk, a game that has the word punk in the name, where you live in a city that jazz is illegal and they'll kill you if they catch you playing jazz music or even listening to jazz music. If you drive around the city bumping jazz music in your car, they'll put you in jail and kill you. So when I turn on the soundtrack and I hear that, it's like, what? Something went very wrong in the releasing process of this game. Like, there are so many missed opportunities in the game. As I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, it forces you down this path. Like, I want to just sit and roam and chill and enjoy myself. But the game keeps trying to be this, like, Borderlands-esque, I don't know what it's trying to be. That's not what it is. Like, they're marketing it one way, and when you go in and play it, it's a different way. But if you actually sit down and really let it, try to get into it, it is so fucking charming, honestly. Like, just all the little things, all these little And that's what it does. It's like a musician. You know, it's like the bard in your Dungeons and Dragons party. He's a worthless piece of shit and owes money all over the city. You know, and it will get you in trouble every time. But he just charms the fuck out of people. You know, like with stuff like this, little billboards, they took the time to create all this stuff, all these little assets. Oops, sorry. They created hundreds of little tiny companies and billboards and just all this fucking detail, which you can imagine it just took so long. Like each one of these images represents, you know, God knows how many hours of time. And I mean, that's just the outer icing on the cake. You know, all these buildings are voxel generated. Like, they're not random structures. Somebody actually designed all this shit, which is fucking amazing. I mean, look at those. Look at that. Look at that. Just fucking look at it. Okay, so you get my point. The game is fucking charming. It's a beautiful game. It's a gorgeous game. And then all that energy just kind of like goes, you know, with the soundtrack and all this stuff I'm talking about. So I think just the fact that I was able to make a soundtrack, I'm not anybody special, but just the fact that I was able to sit down in a few months and make a soundtrack that I feel is better than the original soundtrack with no money and just using the equipment that I have laying around, stuff that I have, collecting dust that I had in my closet. Normally I play with VCRs. Normally I don't mess around with a lot of synth stuff. But I felt the calling, you know? Like, this game called me out. So I set about making a soundtrack, and I'm glad I did it. It was fun. This is the 5th day, the last day of the you know, scheduled streams, and then we'll keep doing it. So that's the game. I mean, you can take a risk and you can go out and buy the game and see for yourself, see if it's for you. But I can already tell you right now that it's not the kind of game. Even I've been infected by its charm, and I'm not going to call in sick to work today to play it. It's not that kind of game. Nor, you know, there's very few games that grab me like that anymore. And this one just happened to be, you know, I just happened across it and I fell in love with it. So I urge you guys to take a risk, but do your research and like watch my VODs and just learn what the game is before you go into it blind, because it's not what you think. I guarantee you, I don't want you to be disappointed. I want you to be optimistic. And the voice acting is really cringy, and the UI is really janky. But like I said, they've created something really special with this game. But they're coming out with a new version of it, like a multiplayer. Yeah, this game. Then you will love this game, dude. Like, it is so full of it. I think I can identify maybe 4 different actors, like 3 men and 1 woman, that do all the hundreds of voices in this game. So it gets bad sometimes, like unbelievably bad. Like, I think the worst was that Amelia. I'm glad we were able to catch Amelia. She was probably the worst example. The girl that took VHS. Hi, good morning. Thank you for coming. Wow, you've been here just about every day. But anyway, yeah, the little girl that took my... Oh, V, I have some bad news. Are you sitting down? I think you should sit down. This is so I don't know if you remember Rapid Joe or Never Slow Joe. He's a racer who, you know, I had that signed autograph from. Well, yesterday, as you might remember, I had to go back to the garage after the game put me back on rails and made me go through a bunch of bullshit. I had to go back to the garage and fix my car, and Emmett, the mechanic, gave me the news that I can't even say it. Never Slow Joe. He finally slowed down, and he's in the ground or in the water. I don't fucking know. I know it's not fair. It was only 11 races in one day. He could have done 16 in his prime. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, well, get it together, Joe. You know, I'm glad this mic has a mute button because sometimes, you know. And you break it off until it breaks. Get it together, Joe. Get it together. Be strong. For Joe. You do it for Joe. This one's for you, Joe. One for me. And one for you, Joe. One for my homies. That's a bit that I did. That's a bit that I like to do. Yeah, it's a good bit. Until it breaks off. He's like, kiss your mother with that mouth? Yeah, so. So Joe's gone. He's gone. I'm sorry for clipping, but he's gone. No more. I just barely met him tonight. Like Obi-Wan and Luke. He was my Obi-Wan and I was like Luke. And we were together for like 3.5 hours and then he died. And I was sad for like 2 movies. For 2 movies he was really sad. And he knew him for like 3.5 hours. That was me. I'm glad you guys can't see me right now because I'm ugly crying right now. Okay, alright, we're back. So, we're playing Cloudpunk, and we're making our own soundtrack. And it's been quite the adventure. We've made some friends that we wanted to like punch in the face, and some friends that are now dead. And you can see how much I care because, you know, the game makes me, I think. Yeah. So I know it's just a dream, but if any of you developers are watching, or if anybody has connections to the developers, my message is clear. Please make a dynamic soundtrack. It's not, you know, we heard some really jamming music earlier, which V, you missed it. We played some game. We played like 3 different songs from the game, and they are some banging ass synthcore tracks. So go out and listen to the soundtrack. Actually, V, I think you would hate the game, but you may really enjoy the soundtrack. It's very modern synth, gunship type stuff. So the problem is the implementation. It's not the music that's the problem. It's the implementation. For one thing, it's full of mid-range noise, so you can't hear it when the music kicks on. It's like trailer music, like a commercial, like a TV commercial or something. It just blasts you so hard you can't hear the environment because they utilized low, mid, and high range noise. But with a game like this, where there's so many cars flying around, there's so much noise. Like right now, I'm sure you can hear it in my mic. There's so much noise. I have my monitors turned almost completely all the way down, and there's just so much noise. So to have a soundtrack on top of that just randomly kicks on, maybe you're doing something important where you have to hear stuff. It's just not a good idea. Like, you know, that's a pretty bad fuck up. that part. Not all the songs are like that. Some of the songs are really conscious of the frequencies. Like they purposely picked bands that could utilize these certain frequencies well. But overall, the soundtrack just didn't do it for me. It doesn't enhance the gameplay. That when you're going from town to town, you should, there's 6 different boroughs, I think, or 7 different boroughs in this huge fucking city, and all of them just generate the same random songs. So they don't have a feel. A huge missed opportunity. They all have their own sky, their own color, their own traffic, their own like layout, but they don't have their own music. I think the soundtrack has something like 32 songs. You couldn't just make a song for each town, so you go to this town, a song turns out. They just didn't do it right. So please, for God's sake, get your game music in order. A dynamic soundtrack would be great. Basically a setup similar to what I have here, where essentially the music is being played from either MIDI or basically the music is being generated from the same place that the 3D sound is being generated from code, essentially. So there's lots of ways to do it, and it's much more storage sensitive. So it leaves a much smaller footprint if you don't use giant fucking MP3s and WAV files. So that's another no-brainer. Also, you created a story. I mean, your writers created a really good story. They did their job. Why didn't the sound people collaborate with the writing people and make a jazz-infused soundtrack? How hard would that have been? Like Gunship would have been a great selection. I mean, and their you find their stuff all over the place. They're basically ready to sell. They're like prostitutes, basically. So you could have easily got some jazz on this if you'd even tried. So I say that in a good way. I like Gunship. Gunship's cool. If you've never seen that, or if you've never heard the song, the Ready Player One song, what's it called? Anyway, yeah, they made this Ready Player One song that makes me cry every time. I love it. So Gunship would have even been a great choice. Power Glove would have been a great choice. I mean, not just it's something a little more bumping and jazzy. Come on, like most of the stuff doesn't even have a beat to it. It's just ambient noise, which we don't need. It's an ambient-filled city. We just got the oh, okay. So you're playing it. You're playing? That's awesome. Yeah, Edith, you're gonna love it. It's you can play this while you work all day, for sure. But yeah, this game is fun. I've talked about the soundtrack. I've talked about the game. A lot of the ideas were not my ideas. I talked about them in the earlier broadcasts. Artists like Richard Vreeland. Oh, you haven't played it yet? Okay, alright, sorry, I missed it. Oh, so you did hear it? Okay. Yeah, it just seems... Anyway, like, why didn't they put jazz in their soundtrack? It's like... It really is, like, the most soulless soundtrack. I love it, it's awesome, but it doesn't fit the game. It doesn't have a soul, it doesn't have... It makes you feel lifeless and worthless, and as soon as that music hits, it's like you're sitting and waiting for something to happen. It zaps you of all your energy and just kind of like freezes you. You're just like a rat, So in any other game, I think in a serious game, in any game that's not like a voxel game, like. If somebody tried to put that music in Minecraft, people would laugh their ass off. Like, Minecraft is just a fun, rich, like, soothing soundtrack, And I tried to be that way too. I mean, obviously, you want to fit the mood of the area you're in. This area here does definitely require some edgier music. But certain other areas, I don't want to hear, like, a fucking, Shadowrun bass. which is one of the best soundtracks of all time, by the way. But it's only appropriate for certain like urban sprawl, like bad area neighborhoods. Yeah, jazz is a big factor in Philip K. Dick's universe. What's funny, because like it's actually happening. Like if in the Japanese have always loved jazz. Like for some reason, when jazz died off here in the U.S., like the Japanese just picked it up and ran with it, and they still have jazz clubs over there. If you watch a lot of kung fu movies, they like old kung fu movies from the 70s and 60s, they are always at jazz clubs. Like the bad guy is always like the owner of a jazz club and shit. So even in all over Asia, they love jazz, and they still do. Even here in the U.S., it's still alive. It never died. So Richard Vreeland is a great example. He was a huge influence on me. And I talked about how his Monsters Ate My Birthday Cake soundtrack, which is still I still listen to it all the time. I still listen to it as if it just came out. But it's almost 10 years old, I think. But his soundtrack for Monsters Ate My Birthday Cake, go out and listen to it. I think it's free. And I think it also comes with all the MIDI files, so you can actually go in and make your own remixes, which is also very cool. He's a legit game music designer. He did the music for Hyper Light Drifter and Fez, two of the best soundtracks ever made. But he also did a dozen other games that you may probably have not heard of. But he's really, really, really good. He's not just like an LD, he's not like a Game Boy artist. He can sit down on a piano, or he can sit down on a tracker, and he can use he's made music for almost every console. And the way he does it is he approaches every project from scratch using the tools that he has available. So for example, if they want him to make a game, a vintage game, then he goes out and learns how to use the sound engine for that machine. And all of the rules of music apply to whatever game engine you're using, and that's why they use him. He goes out to these pop-up game workshops, that they have all over the place, where they try to make a game in like 72 hours or 48 hours or whatever. I'm sure Edith knows what I'm talking about. But he goes out to all those things and just shows up and makes a soundtrack from scratch, or that's what he used to do. Now he's a big-time composer. There's a film called It Follows. He did the sound for that, or he did the soundtrack for that. But his soundtrack, Monsters Ate My Birthday Cake, really inspired me and really set he set me on a path of what I believe is proper game music design. By listening to his stuff, I was able to hear, what can be achieved through music. So he can do the whole gamut of emotions. He's done goofy games, he's done serious games, he's done horror games, and there's one thing that always is a recurring theme in all of his game music design, as opposed to his original music. His original music is very complex. His compositions for consoles and computer are all very simple, right? Like they're not these $50,000 synth tracks. They're all very simple. Like small, infectious rhythms. The way that they did it back in the day when they didn't have $50,000 to spend on sound design. So that's why people hire him, because he knows how to use limited resources and achieve really dynamic results. So his Monsters Ate My Birthday Cake soundtrack really inspired me for the juice idea. The idea that in this game, when you take juice, the music should be affected by the juice. That was the prime object of that track. So essentially, you're driving around, you go to a different neighborhood, that the music in that neighborhood is going, and if you take juice, then there's FM synth manipulation that takes effect. It's not hard to do. It's easy to program, and especially if you're just using like MIDI files, or if you have your own sound engine as part of the game, you can easily just make 4 tracks, and then one track is distorted and the other one's not. And one track is your track that plays at this instance, and the other. It's easy to fucking do. So I don't understand why they didn't do it. And I'm already like in mega complaint mode now, so I'm just gonna stop there. But that's why I'm doing this. I would love it if when they made for Versailles, which is the new MMO like version of this game for multiplayer, if they just keep that in mind, if they would just not try to be a whore, and all they're doing with all this just the soundtrack especially is trying to make it seem like this game is something that it's not. It's just a cozy, fun little game that they're trying to make as much money as they can on. And it's just not sustainable. I'm sorry, this game is cute and it's cool and it's fun, but it's a dead end as far as money making. This is the one that Ed is just going to be playing for 15 years from now. So it's not going to be the blockbuster game of the century. It's not. So don't go into Cloudpunk thinking that it's going to change your life. It's not. It's just a fun little. I would compare it to when I discovered alcohol colored markers. So those things are awesome. If you're an artist and you like to draw, Dom, you would probably identify with this. But when I got alcohol markers as opposed to traditional markers, it was a game changer for my art, right? So, but I didn't. That was the only change that alcohol-based markers had on my life. That I think Cloudpunk can change the way you think about games. Honestly, like the same way alcohol markers made me think about graphic design. Cloudpunk can be a tool that you can use to be creative and expressive. So I have to tip my hat if I was wearing a hat. I don't wear hats, but if I had a hat, I would tip it to the designers on this game because they gave us something really cool and special. With that, I think we're going to end it. We did our 2-hour mark. I mean, we didn't come anywhere near to 16 tracks. I think today we only did like 5. So, but you know what? I don't care. Like it's my world. It's my life. Before we go, I just wanted to say a little bit about the future. There's going to be a couple pop-up streams because this game has room for improvement. But my music also has room for improvement. I've recognized from listening to my own VODs from the past couple days, just to check my voice and stuff like that. I'm not like obsessed with listening to my own music, but I like to hear the quality, do quality check kind of stuff. And there's some things that I would like to change about my music. For example, I was working on fills at the time when I first started streaming, and I just didn't have time. Drum fills. The 808 gives you the ability to, like every 16 bars or 38 bars or 12 bars or whatever you want, it gives you the opportunity to do drum fills. And at first, I made some fills and I was experimenting with them, but they weren't very good quality, so the seams started showing up. So when you go from one song part to the other, it does this drum fill to let you know that it's changing, and I didn't like that, so I turned them off. But I still think it can be done better. So I'm going to try and work on drum fills. That could take weeks, I don't know. But in the meantime, I also want to do, I've said this many times, that when I get out of the car, the ambience changes, and I think that the music, or the soundscape changes, and I think the music should reflect that. So I'm going to work on that too. I had ideas before this about a drum and bass element. So as Rania gets out of her car and hits the ground, a new type of urban jazz kicks in that's more of a like square pusher type jazz, Probies, or I don't know what the name of the track is, but a little bit more sample, because when you're on the ground you don't have all this ambient noise of the vehicles, so it gives you a little bit of more sonic headroom. So I do want to add a drum and bass element. That could take weeks, I don't know. So as I complete these different elements, then I'll do little pop-up streams just to see if they work. And but I'm not gonna make a big to-do about it. If you guys can make it, that's cool. If you see me pop online, hop on over and say hi. But it's more just an experiment because I have to boot up the game, and adding pressure does help me a little bit perform. So to have that element to where, you know, live television or live streaming adds a huge amount of pressure, as you guys all know. And it actually can generate some more jazz-like results in that respect, that you can accidentally, you know, slip and twist the knob too far and get something, which has happened over and over. Like, a lot of the stuff that I go back and hear later is completely accidental. Some stuff that I really, really like is like, oh shit, I forgot to turn the bit crusher off on this part. And then somehow, like, we go into a different area, the wind starts blowing, and that bit crusher just sounds really hot on top of the. So I listen to this stuff and I think, fuck, I'm gonna go in. Maybe I'll make that a permanent change. And I think maybe Rezi can relate to this. That's how mathy music works. Like, it's always dynamic. So, for example, one of my favorite bands, Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum, they talk a lot about their processes. You can watch their videos on YouTube about the backstage interviews. And basically, the way they improv, they don't just go out on stage and improv. They improv in the practice space. So they sit down and, you know, improv and come up with this stuff. But then when they hit something that they like, they make that part of the repertoire. So the writing element is their freestyle arena. And then when they're live in front of people, they already have a composed, like, they have the rules, the jazz rules in place. So they're not just making up music on the fly. I don't know if people understand the difference. Like, there's improvisational artists, like sidewalk art installation artists that just improv, or, like, you know, you watch Whose Line Is It Anyway? Those guys are improv, and those are actually legit improv. But musicians, very rarely are they able, or very rarely is it practical to literally go out and improv. You almost always have to practice, you know, at least once. I know a lot of musicians who only practice once, and then the show is the practice, you know, but it doesn't always go well. Anyway, point being, I think, you know, long story short, I think that there's room for improvement in my stuff. I'm not above admitting that my stuff is not perfect, and I think I can make it a little more seamless. I think I've got 16 tracks that you know, I can barely get to in 2 hours. I think that I can shorten them a little bit in certain ways, or I can make the process, shorten the process. I can record video and dedicate you know, my hands and strictly to making music while the video plays. That might work a little better, and just, you know, watch the video and improv as the video happens. I'm gonna try all those things, but I think there's ways of making it better. And eventually I do want to record the soundtrack. I do want to record an actual, but I have the luxury of not needing to write a complete song. So, like, these guys who designed the game music, they had to actually make a start, a beginning, and an end. But I have the luxury, you know, playing a game or making a soundtrack to a game that's already finished, that the game actually fills in the gaps for me. So I fly around, I make music that builds slowly and descends. It ascends and descends, and then as the song ends, the game kicks in, you know. And the way that's just not normally the way that you make music. You know, you don't have that kind of ambiance to work with. I have this beautiful, like, beautifully crafted 3D soundscape, or city full of 3D sounds. You can hear the rain on the windshield, you know, all that stuff. So I have a bunch of advantages over the people that made the songs on this soundtrack. Check out that rearview mirror. What the fuck is it doing? There's nothing in my rearview mirror right now. Nothing's rendered. It's the fog, I think. But anyway, you know, it's a real treat. It's a real honor to get to play music for you guys. I'm glad it's over. You know, to be honest with you, it's been a really hard week at work. So to have it was just a real kick in the nuts to have to come home last night and play this stupid, you know, like, end game level that it just keeps. Like I said, I'm like, okay, I'll listen to this fucking conversation, but then I'm going to bed, and then the next conversation won't end, and therefore I can't save it. So then when it finally does save it, it puts me in another state where if I were to start the stream again, I would have to listen to another 30 minutes of fucking conversation. It was eternally frustrating, and at that moment I was contemplating, okay, do I really want to stream this game tomorrow? How bad do I want to stream this game tomorrow? Because I could just have a blank screen and just play music, and it would be just as good. I mean, just as fun. So the game pissed me off pretty bad, I guess, is my point. But anyway, the game is Cloudpunk. The band is VCR5. I'm Dayu Bad Guys, also known as Dub G. And the concept is hidden soundtracks. And yeah, we're gonna raid out now. I don't feel the need to play us out. We're gonna keep going, so we'll see you guys next time. Love y'all. Thanks, Edith, for being here always. You're great. You're not a mod yet, but I'm gonna make you a mod. You wait. I'll figure out how to do it. Okay. Love you guys. I'm gonna send you to the goodbye screen, and I'll see you next time.
This is not the beginning of the end. It is the end of the beginning. This is not the beginning of the end.